What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Rough Drafts. My name is Sam Pratt. This week we're going to be returning to Through the Omen Paths, but I won't be talking about one of the supported archetypes. Instead, I'm going to be talking about green-black. So I've talked a little bit about green-black when I was guesting on Lords of Limited this past week. I filled in for Ben, who was at MagicCon Atlanta. And Ethan and I talked about some of the enemy color pairs, and I went a little bit in depth on how I thought that green-black came together. It's not explicitly supported. There's only one green-black card in the entire set, and it's a rare. But I do think it is a base of a deck that is quite supported with individual cards. And I think you can think of green-black or maybe Sultai or Jund or like kind of green pile decks as a not-so-secret sixth deck in the format, or if you ask me, I think this is a better deck than green-red in this format. The mana in this format I found to be pretty good. It could just be that we're coming off of Edge of Eternities, which is a set with notoriously bad fixing outside of just green. We have the cycle of common duels in the land slot. We have an Evolving Wilds. We have a Manalith. We have a pretty medium green Mana Dork. There's just a lot of ways to fix your mana. I found that green especially can get really splashy in this format. So I'm looking at green-black, not just as strictly green-black, but sort of this stand-in for a multicolor green deck that I actually think is best supported with a green-black base. I'm going to start taking a very brief look at some 17 lands data. 17 lands has a very small sample size. I mean, just for this set in general, I know it's not very popular at all, but for green-black, it's about green-black, and green-black with a splash has about 1/6 the sample size of blue-white, green-red, or red-black, which those themselves have about 1/2 or 1/3 the sample size of games played with blue-black or white-green. So not many people are playing a base green-black deck, but it is outperforming every single two-color deck outside of green-white. So green-black and green-black with a splash, I'm rolling in the splashes. There's an option to do this when you look at the data. Green-black and green-black with a splash has a 56.8% win rate across all users. This is better than any other archetype other than green-white, which is the best archetype in the format. I do think you are supposed to splash in this deck. There's no green-black straight gold cards, and I think the mana is good, especially in green. You get things from other colors, but I do think the important parts of this deck, especially how I'm outlining it, consist of green and black cards that you won't want to splash. So I do think that green-black is the best base for this deck. I will talk a little bit about, I think that green-blue is an okay base for this deck as well, but I'm kind of viewing this as the green-black deck. So in my content, I don't usually get into how you get into this deck, how you get into a deck that I'm talking about. I more talk about what kind of cards work together. But I do think it's worth mentioning how you might get into this green-black deck in particular, because it's not one of the supported archetypes. I do think you need somewhat of a leap of faith. And I think the most obvious starting place for this archetype is black rares. And there are a lot of good black rares in this set. So I'm just going to read off a handful of them because I think it's good to know. You have Luis Pompous Pillager, which is X black black 2/1 lifelink, enters with X +1/+1 counters on him. When he enters, he deals X damage to target opponent. This card's ridiculous. It's the best card in the set. You have Wrench Speedway Saboteur, which is this 5-mana 2/3 that double Gaunties your opponent, looks at their top 9. You have Egrix the Bile Bulwark, which is a step below those other cards. It's a 5-mana 4/4 mythic, Death Touch lifelink. When it attacks until end of turn, you can look at the top card of your library and play cards from the top of your library. You basically get Bolus's Citadel until end of turn every time it attacks. There's also Villainous Wrath, which is a 5-mana wrath that deals damage to the opponent. There is Hex of Undeath, which the stats aren't amazing on this one, but I do think it's really good in the green-black deck. This is 7 mana, return up to 6 target creature cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. There's a bunch of gold black rares. So you have Barako Heartless Hunter, which is the green black rare, which is a pretty good card. You have 2 white black rares in Conius Horizon Splicer and with our Cocoon Creeper, which are very splashable. You also have Niche Pinnacle Pariah, which is a blue-black mythic that like draws you a ridiculous amount of cards. There's just like so many good black rares, especially like if you're in the green splashy space and can splash them. I think that you are going to start a non-zero, like a non-insignificant portion of your drafts with a very strong black rare that you are going to want to hold onto. And a lot of these are double pipped, you know, Luis, Wrench, Villainous Wrath, Egrix. These are all double pipped rares that you can't really splash comfortably. And I think the way that you get into this deck a lot of time would be you open a black rare and then green starts flowing and you pair your green with this, or you start heavy green and then you end up getting like you open a wrench and you don't really have a solid second color. So you grab the wrench and you just sort of move into this. And I think there is more to this deck than just take a bomb, play green cards, and just play good green and black cards. I think there is something more to this archetype than just play the good cards. And that in particular is that I think that green and black cards have a particularly high density of self-mill and recursion that is not really utilized by the existing supported archetypes in this set. Let's get into some specifics about these self-mill and recursion cards. First off, the namesake of the episode, Eerie Gravestone. Eerie Gravestone is a common 2-mana artifact. When it enters draw a card, you can pay 1 to black, sack it, mill 4 cards. You can put a creature card from among them into your hand. I actually think that this card is really strong on its own. Like, I think this could be close to top common performance level in a different set. If it was in something like Brothers War, which would care about artifacts, care about sacrificing permanents, and cares about the graveyard, I think this would definitely be like in that upper echelon of cards. Like self-mill and a draw 2 is like really strong. You can activate the ability at instant speed. The problem is this card just like doesn't really fit into what black, red, or blue, black are doing in this set. Like black, red needs really specific pieces. And I think it's a little bit hard to find room for this in your black, red decks. Like you need like the payoff and enabler, like the A+B to do a mayhem deck. Like you need discard outlets and mayhem cards. And like, I found that it's hard to get Eerie Gravestone into that deck in like a functional capacity. Blue black does care about the graveyard, but I often find that my blue black decks are really happy playing. Like if I just play the good cards, I end up with like 11 creatures in my deck. And Eerie Gravestone specifically says you need to put a card from the milled cards into your hand. So you really need like at least 14 creatures in your deck to make this reliably hit. I ideally want 15 and 16. So I think Gravestone is really strong and it doesn't really fit into those archetypes. And I think that green black, especially if you're playing with these higher powered rares, is a really nice place to play the Gravestone because it supports your other graveyard synergies while also digging for your most powerful bombs. There are other black cards that mill cards as well that aren't really supported in the other decks. Like blue black, I've drafted a lot of blue black because it's been extremely open. And I found that oftentimes I just like don't care about the graveyard at all. Like the Phantasmal Vision, the guy that mills when it attacks has been like downside for me for the most part because like I come close to decking a lot. One card in particular that I think is really strong for green black is Bane Marked Leonin, which is 2 and a black for a 2/3 death touch when it enters mill 2 cards, and it's also a villain. This is another card that I don't think really fits into blue black or black red. It looks a lot like Shinra Reinforcements from Final Fantasy. Shinra Reinforcements didn't have death touch, but it did gain you some life. I think that 2/3 death touch mill is actually a really generous rate. Like 2/3 death touch is like not an embarrassing body at all. And I think that villain type matters a lot too. And I think that this card just like doesn't really fit into black, red, or blue, black, but does really fit into this sort of grindy recursion angle black green deck that I'm kind of theory crafting here. Another card that self mills is Scout the City. Really similar to Eerie Gravestone. You need like a density of permanents. Scout the City is 1 to green, Choose one, mill 3 cards, put a permanent from among them into your hand, gain 3, or destroy target creature with flying. This is another card that just like, green doesn't ostensibly care about the graveyard in this set. Like it's doing like green-white web slinging, green-red for mana value matters. Like it doesn't really fit into those archetypes. I'm not really sure what it's doing here, but it does support this green-black, find your bombs, play them, recur them, etc. type of deck. There's also a lot of like other types of recursion without self-mill. You have Nil, Vessel of Valgavoth, which is an uncommon in black. It's 2 and a black, 2/2. When it enters, return target villain card from your graveyard to your hand, and villain spells cost 1 less to cast. This is really similar to Old Rutstein from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. That was one of the best uncommons in the entire set. Of those busted rares that I mentioned up top, like Luis, Wrench, Bracco, Conius, Withar. Sounds like I'm just like making up words on the spot. Almost all of those are villains. Nil can recur them. I've had decks with Nil and Luis, and it's ridiculous. Like they kill your Luis and then you get a discount when you play the Nil. It's just like really works in this self-mill space. Another card is Selesnya Archivist. 3 and a green, 3/3, uncommon. When it enters, either return a card with mana value 4 or greater from your graveyard to your hand, or exile an artifact or enchantment. This card's like just a good card, but it works particularly well here because most of the black bombs you get are 4 mana or greater. Prison Break. This is a Zombify with Mayhem. 5 mana up front, 4 mana if you Mayhem it. I think this card is just like return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. Works really well if you have something like Wrench. I think you're going to be a little short on ways to discard in this color combination, but I think that just straight up Zombify is probably good enough if you have like these really powerful cards outside of, Luis, which has a cast trigger. There's just like a lot of cards in this black-green space that work for this archetype that don't really get maximized in the prescribed 2-color pairs, which is a little confusing to me, but I do think there's something here, and I would really recommend like keeping an eye on it during the draft, especially if you start your draft with one of these busted rares. One other card that I have my eye on for this sort of strategy is an uncommon in green called Ancestral Carvings. It's a 3 mana artifact. When it enters, you look at the top 5 cards of your library and you can reveal up to 2 creature cards from among them, put them into your hand, the rest on the bottom. And then you can also pay 1, sack it to make a treasure. This card looks really bad to me. Lead the Stampede is not like a card that I would be excited to put in my limited deck. And most of the time, unless I had like 16 creatures at least, this card's actually performing at a C+ in the aggregate per 17 lands. And that is broken down by archetype, a C in green-white and a B- in green-red. So this card's like punching way above its weight of where I would expect it. And I think if you do have these bomb rares, it definitely like seems to deserve a place in your deck. Like this is the type of card that if it was garbage, the stats would tell you. This would be like a straight F if this wasn't worth playing. And I think it's very, very notable that this is doing as well as it is. As far as how to round out the rest of the green-black deck, I want to spend a little bit more time talking about Leyline Weaver. This is 1 GR hybrid common 2/2. Tap to add red or green, has reach. Whenever you cast a spell with mana value 4 or greater, you untap it. This card is absurd. I think it's probably the best common in my mind. I think it being hybrid is so crazy. It's definitely like the best red card below rare, which I think speaks to how bad red is. But I do think this card is nuts. I think this deck, you want to play the green game plan that green has. Like green's bread and butter in this format is curving Leyline Weaver into Favored Fighter, which is a 4 mana green common. It's a 4/4, can only be blocked by 1 creature, and when it enters, you make a treasure token. So the curve is Leyline Weaver, turn 3, cast Favored Fighter, untap Weaver, make a treasure, then you have 2 mana to play another 2-drop, which is a ridiculous curve to spend, 8 mana on turn 3, by turn 3. I think that's what your green-black deck should look like. I really think that Leyline Weaver is in the top echelon of commons in this set, and honestly just cards in this set below rare. I will point out that this does kind of, if you have multiple Leyline Weavers in your deck, if you're so lucky to have that, you do kind of get a free red splash. Like I said, the mana is really good in this set. It shouldn't be too hard to pick up some, like, if you're in this green-black space, pick up some, like, green-red or black-red lands, especially because one of those two decks should probably be the deck at the table that's not drafted. And while I don't think that red in general gives you that much in this deck, like the red cards are just kind of bad, if you're lacking early game, I think it's totally fine to like splash a shock to shore up your early game. And I do think that the red, green, gold cards like Zakao, Predation Shadow, which is the 7 mana 6/7 Vigilance Trample Haste. When he attacks, if you cast a spell with mana value 4 or greater this turn, draw a card. I think this card is actually really good. Just kind of like a symptom performing poorly because green red's performing so poorly. It's kind of like a ridiculous card. And the other green red side post, Dreadfang, Loathed by Fans, which is a pretty funny like name for a card. Like why does Dreadfang have fans if they loathe Dreadfang, how are they fans? I don't know. It's okay. 3 mana, star 4 vigilance, power is equal to the greatest mana value among permanents you control. I think both of the green red cards, you can totally splash these for free. I know Zekao is double red, but I do think if you're playing like the Leyline Weavers and the tap lands, it shouldn't be too hard to get double red mana sources by the time you need to cast it, especially if you have like favored fighters and you can also get the treasures, etc. As far as black cards go, honestly, outside of like Eerie, Gravestone, and Bane Marked Leonin, I think that Damning Caress, which is the like big removal spell that gains life, I think this card is what you're kind of like getting out of black from this plan, other than the specific self-mill cards. I think this card is just great in general. And like just like other black removal is good. I do think that while the self-mill stuff is really valuable, you could probably build a similar green splashy deck with a blue-green base as well. Blue just kind of has a lot of good cards. You could even sort of splash maybe Nil or just play like the Selesnya Archivist, and then you get self-mill from Phantasmal Vision, which is the 2 mana 1/3 flying vigilance attack mill card. I think that like a blue-green base and then maybe like splashing the black removal, I think this is like a similar type of space to black-green. So I think you should leave that door open if like the blue cards are really flowing. And overall, I've found green to be pretty tricky to get into. I do think that people in the pick 2 drafts have been sort of like forcing white and green to their own detriment. Like I found that in my last, I don't know, half dozen drafts or so, I've almost exclusively been drafting blue black because it's just been like so free. Like I've been the only black or blue drafter in most of these drafts. But I do think that green can go into any color combination reasonably well with the same game plan. Like I said, that Leyline Weaver into favored fighter curve. And I think that if you are in base green, you should just be open to playing any secondary color, but rightfully skeptical of red because red just like doesn't get good cards in general. And this episode's a little short, but I do think I'm going to wrap it up there. My thoughts overall in this set, it's not that bad. Like, I know there's a lot of discourse and vitriol for this set and what it is and sort of what it represents about where Magic is, but I've actually had a lot of fun playing the games. I think that pick 2 is a relatively interesting puzzle, especially the first couple picks in the draft. I found the new mechanics and the new cards to just be like pretty fun to play. Like if you compare it to like Foundations didn't really offer anything new in terms of like gameplay play patterns. And I do think that like in Web and Connive and Mayhem does offer something like interesting in the gameplay that's pretty fresh. So honestly, I haven't hated this set, but I do think it's extremely shallow. Like, I think this is kind of the spiciest thing you can do. I've seen like some like Jeskai or blue-red decks that are like really niche, like sort of pushing the boundaries on the supported archetypes. And because of this shallowness, this is going to be my last episode covering this set. I only got 3 in, but you know, I do think that people aren't really into this set as a whole. I'm into it, but kind of like reaching the end of the lifespan for it. And I want to spend some time covering some other topics. And I will spend a little bit of time talking about what my content plan for the rest of this set's lifespan will be. I'm going to spend the next couple of episodes talking about Cube in general. I know I put out the bonus episode that goes really in depth on my own Arena Cube. I know that one was kind of ridiculously long. I just kind of wanted to go off. This is going to be sort of more like bread and butter, like how do you strategically approach Cube differently from booster draft? Like how do you approach a Cube you haven't drafted before? And then I'm going to do a CubeCon recap episode. So I've been listening to a lot of Lucky Paper Radio, which is a fantastic Cube podcast I can't recommend enough. And when they go to like these sort of local Cube events, they always do these recap episodes where they talk about all the cubes they drafted, like what their deck was like, sort of like the vibes of the event. I think it's really fun. I think it would be fun to do a similar type of recap episode after I go to CubeCon in Madison next month, which I will be at. You can say hi to me if you're going to be there. And then the last 2 episodes of this season, I'm going to keep under wraps for now. They're going to be good. So stay tuned. And then we'll be moving on to Avatar. And that's going to wrap it up. You can reach me on socials at Bluesky, at sampratt.bsky.social. I'm on Discord at samp6, and I stream very occasionally at samp_MTG. Thanks for listening. See you next week.